I worked just shy of 40 years, but my pension still wasn't going to be enough for us. So when he called out of the blue, offering a free pension review, I was all ears. He spoke professionally about investments. He seemed a really decent guy. Just shy of 40 years, pension. He took all of it.
Seriously popular.
Welcome to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I am Sarah Vine.
And I am Peter Hitchens.
And this week, what can Brooklyn Beckham possibly mean when he accuses his mother of dancing on him at his wedding? And Peter wants to know if proposed mega police forces will just mean more constabulary cockups. We'll be back after this.
Now, I'm as guilty as anyone when it comes to ignoring things. Road grey hairs, red flags in relationships, or that service reminder on your car dash. Luckily, that one's easy. Visit Cinch for faff-free servicing at over 100 locations. Any car, whether you bought it from Cinch or not. With MOTs $39.95 and servicing from only $129.95. To book your service or buy your next car, visit cinch.co.uk. See cinch.co.uk/servicing for details, terms and exclusions apply.
Hey marketers, here's something to note. 75% of listeners don't consider podcasters to be influencers, yet 84% say a podcaster has changed their mind about something they once believed. That's the paradox of podcast influence. It's built on credibility, not clout, trust, not trends. Acast's Podcast Pulse 2025 report reveals how podcast creators are redefining influence through resonance, multi-platform fandoms, and their ability to shape culture. Get the full report for free at podcastpulse2025.com.
Welcome back to Alas Vine and Hitchens. I'm Sarah Vine.
She is, and I am still Peter Hitchens.
And today, Peter, I'm going to make you talk about celebrities.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. You're going to be very well behaved, and you're not going to sit there grumpily and pretend that you don't care. So,
I don't need to pretend that I don't care. It's all true.
It's a very important matter
I
of
also
national
don't care about
importance.
Greenland.
Okay, well, let's not. We're not
the
talking
Chagos Island.
Isn't it Chagos?
I don't know. That's the extent of my non-caringness.
I can't even pronounce it. Okay, look, we are going to talk about Brooklyn Beckham. It's a huge story. Everyone is obsessed. Even my children are obsessed. It's quite interesting. It cuts across all generations. Obviously, doesn't arrive in the Peter Hitchens household. But it is quite interesting because basically, Brooke, shall I explain to you what's happened, or do you actually
Go on,
know?
explain to me what's happened.
So Brooklyn Beckham, who is the firstborn child of David and Victoria Beckham.
Firstborn sounds terribly biblical,
It
doesn't it?
sounds rather Victorian. Anyway, he's the firstborn child. Anyway, he married somebody called Nicola Peltz. Yes, that's right.
And he begat.
And no, they haven't begat anything yet. They've just been very. He's become very angry with his parents.
This is not totally uncommon, is it?
No, it's not totally uncommon. And so he's published a 6-page diatribe on the Instagram against his parents, accusing them of various things: controlling behaviour, general. Terrible, parenting, everything apparently is done for the image, etc., etc. I mean, not that this is news to any of us. But one of the things he has said is that at his wedding to Nicola Peltz, Lady, as we must now call her, Victoria Beckham, danced on him in an inappropriate manner.
It's been quite painful, wasn't it? She wears quite high-heeled shoes. I have noticed this in the papers.
Good.
There are two things I know about Victoria Beckham. Is she still Victoria Beckham, or is she Lady something?
She's Lady Victoria Beckham.
Like you, a lady. But she wears quite high-heeled shoes, and that she once said a very clever thing, which was, "I want to be as famous as Purcell Automatic."
Did she really?
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really clever thing to have said, and I think she's achieved it.
Yes, she is now as famous as a washing powder.
But not just any washing powder. Purcell Automatic.
This sort of accusation from Brooklyn, which is essentially that at his own wedding, instead of the first dance being with his lovely new lady wife, his mother, in a sort of terrible cougar predatory move, decided to dance with him and embarrassed him by dancing on him, which I think is sort of colloquial speak for sort of gyrating in the close vicinity of.
So you think my literal-minded interpretation is wrong?
Yes, I think it might be, yes. Yeah. Anyway, this is very embarrassing.
The English language never ceases to grow more elaborate and
but
incomprehensible.
this is quite a thing to say about your mother. I mean,
if
my son said that about me, I mean, not that I would dance in any proximity to any of my children, because they would immediately, have me taken away and shot.
Well, I think it's a human rights thing, isn't it? You can't.
Explain.
Well, I think it would be the human right of any person under the age of 25
to have their
parent dancing anywhere near them or anywhere near where their friends could see this happening.
I agree. I mean, I think
I'm not sure which of the paragraphs of the convention it would breach, but family life, privacy, I don't
possibly
know.
yes, right to family life. I mean, the thing about weddings is that they do often bring out the worst in people, don't they? I mean, at my wedding, my father managed to give an entire Father of the Bride speech without actually mentioning the bride. That was me. Just talked about himself. And it's actually on tape of him just talking about himself. And how
my father-in-law refused to come to the wedding.
Did he?
Yeah, he paid for the reception and he made a speech afterwards. Well, he said in a speech afterwards, "I have nothing against these two young people except their politics and their religion." He was a communist atheist.
But he did pay for the wedding.
He paid for the wedding reception.
Well, that's
nice I rather admired it.
Yes.
No, I'm not coming.
I'm told that, although obviously I wasn't there, but I'm told that at my parents' wedding, which was a somewhat hurried affair, my grandfather, who at the time was a colonel in the Royal Mechanical Engineers, threatened my father with his ceremonial sword in a dramatic fason.
From what you tell us of your father, I'm not as surprised as I otherwise would be. But I don't think you're allowed to do that, are you?
I don't know. It was 1966. You did all kinds of things.
Swords, they're not to be trifled with.
But no, he was
quite long and often quite sharp, especially at the point.
I mean, that could just be one of those sort of family legends. But yes, I think even that is not as bad as dancing on your son at his own wedding.
Perhaps not.
No, because I mean that just implies a sort of weird, creepy,
this is all in the interpretation, isn't it? I spent a lot of time some days ago analysing the films of that woman who was shot by the immigration control people in Minneapolis. There are lots and lots of films and many, many different interpretations. It took a lot of hard work to establish beyond doubt that she had not, as claimed by the President of the United States, run him over. So you'd want to know what other people present at this occasion thought was going on. You'd also want to know what Victoria Beckham thought she was doing as well.
Well,
I think they're quite sensibly not engaging on
it.
Which would be the wisest thing to do.
Which I think is the right thing to do. But apparently there is only one piece of footage because all the phones, there were 500 guests, they all had to hand in their phones. But there is one video of this alleged event, and Brooklyn himself has it. So the question is...
It has not been shown to anybody.
It's not been shown. But you see, the thing is, there are some questions about this because according to American Vogue, which actually reported on the wedding, he had his
They sent a team.
I believe so. Well, I mean, I'm not sure they have any reporters in Vogue, but I think somebody probably went along and took some photographs. But apparently they had, so he had his first dance with Nicola Peltz. And then much later on at 11 o'clock, they did that thing, which is a very American thing, of David Beckham danced with his daughter and Victoria danced with her son, which is a thing that they do in America, apparently. And that is allegedly when the thing happened. So, I don't know, recollections may vary.
I was just thinking of that exact phrase.
I think we do need to see the video. That's the thing. I think if you say that sort of thing about your mother, then you either need to provide proof of it or apologise. Because I don't think it's just really, it's a really terrible, I mean, I have said some unkind things about my father, but none of them are untrue. And, you know, I am still on very good terms with him. I believe that you should have these conversations and move on. But, you know, that is a very, 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 it's a really odd thing to say about your mother, I think.
Yes.
And she might have had a champagne or something. Might have not been quite as realising what she was doing, which people tend to do at weddings.
As with all family quarrels, you want to look away.
Yes. Anyway, he clearly feels...
I will look away.
You are looking away. I mean, he clearly feels that he is justified in this. And again, that is rather sad that they couldn't resolve it between themselves. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I can tell that you don't really want to talk about this.
Well, I can't. There's not much I can. I know almost nothing about it, and I disapprove.
I think it's good.
I disapprove both of the of the interruption, the self-invasion of private life involved, and actually of our willingness to pursue it. I just think it's all wrong. I just can't think it's morally justifiable either to do it or to fan it with publicity.
With publicity, yeah. No, I think that is a very fair point. Anyway, let us know what you think. alas@dailymail.co.uk. We will come back after the break with some very nice letters and also Peter's subject, which is mega police forces.
Now, I'm as guilty as anyone when it comes to ignoring things. Road grey hairs, red flags in relationships, or that service reminder on your car dash. Luckily, that one's easy. Visit Cinch for fat-free servicing at over 100 locations. Any car, whether you bought it from Cinch or not. With MOTs $39.95 and servicing from only $129.95. To book your service or buy your next car, visit cinch.co.uk. See cinch.co.uk/servicing for details, terms and exclusions apply.
Hey marketers, here's something to note. 75% of listeners don't consider podcasters to be influencers, yet 84% say a podcaster has changed their mind about something they once believed. That's the paradox of podcast influence. It's built on credibility, not clout, trust, not trends. Acast's Podcast Polls 2025 report reveals how podcast creators are redefining influence through resonance, multi-platform fandoms, and their ability to shape culture. Get the full report for free at podcastpolls2025.com.
Now, I'm as guilty as anyone when it comes to ignoring things. Road grey hairs, red flags in relationships, or that service reminder on your car dash. Luckily, that one's easy. Visit Cinch for fat-free servicing at over 100 locations. Any car, whether you bought it from Cinch or not. With MOTs $39.95 and servicing from only $129.95. To book your service or buy your next car, visit cinch.co.uk. See cinch.co.uk/servicing for details, terms and exclusions apply.
Influencer marketing isn't what it used to be. We're shifting from reach to resonance, from impressions to impact. It's no longer about how many people see your content, it's how deeply you connect with them. And nothing creates that connection quite like podcasts. Acast's Podcast Polls 2025 report reveals how podcast creators are redefining influence through resonance, multi-platform fandoms, and their ability to shape culture. So if you're a marketer who's tired of vanity metrics and looking for meaningful results, podcasts are where you need to be. Download the full research for free at podcastpolls2025.com.
Welcome back to Alas, Vine Hitchens. She is Sarah Vine and I remain Peter Hitchens. And what I wish to speak about is an extraordinary story which appeared in the Daily Mail recently, in which a leading figure in the Association of Chief Police Officers talked of getting rid of most of the police forces of England, cutting them down to about 10 from the current, I can't remember, 40-something, I think. And it's always put forward as being more efficient and more likely to be effective against criminals. But there's absolutely no evidence that I've ever seen that large, distant police forces are any better at combating crime and disorder than small ones. When we first had police forces in this country, I think we had about 240 across the entire island. And then there was, some of them were cut back in, I think, the 1920s. But then along came Roy Jenkins, the worst Home Secretary in the history of the country. And
you have mentioned this before.
Well, I have mentioned it, but it needs to be stressed because it was, his tenure was so disastrous in so many ways. But one of the ways he achieved the abolition of proper policing, that is to say, preventive foot patrols, was by merging lots of police forces. And so the individual chief constables of the, 120 odd, which existed at the time he did this in 1964-65, basically were faced with a game of musical chairs. If they didn't do what Roy Jenkins told them to do, then they would probably end up without a force to be head of. So I think only one of them spoke out against this, saying it would be a bad thing. I don't think anybody who lived before the mergers and who's since lived afterwards would say that policing had improved in this country. It's since then.
No.
And the caricature of all this, of course, is Scotland with Police Scotland. As everything has to go backwards now. Sport England, Police Scotland, whatever it is. Police Scotland
Hitchens, Peter.
is not exactly admired as the most effective police force.
But the thing about...
Nor do people say, oh, I'm really pleased that Police Scotland has taken over from the previous separate police forces, because they found, for obvious reasons, that they aren't as good. One of the main reasons is take, for instance, the Thames Valley Force, which supposedly protects me from crime and danger. I have several times reported incidents to them in parts of Oxford where I live, which are quite well known to anybody who lives in Oxford. And the reply is invariably, where did you say? What's the postcode? And I remember once I actually called the police to assist me. I pursued some vandals who put a rock through my front window and cornered them, stopped a taxi. This is before mobile phones. Stopped a taxi in the street, got him to radio the police to tell them where it was.
That's like an episode of
They never came. I had to let these louts go. They never came, but what they said to me afterwards was we couldn't find the road.
Yeah.
They didn't know that they didn't, even though it was quite a well-known road. I won't name it for this and no point, but they could not find the road.
I mean,
and this is one of the reasons. If you have a police force which is local, they know the road.
Yeah.
Not only do they know the road, they've walked along it. They
Well,
know where the back doubles are off it. They know if they're pursuing somebody, they know where they'll go. They know the area in the way that you probably know your own and I know mine. But these vast reactive police forces with control centres miles away from everywhere don't know.
No.
And therefore, that's another reason why they're no good. Bigger merged police forces are not for the benefit of the public. The two other effects they will have. One is because no local authority will be big enough to stand up to them and say you're not doing your job. They will ignore that. And again, that's another way in which they'll ignore public demands. And the other thing is that they will become more and more under the control of central government, which is constitutionally bad.
Yes.
You should not have a national police force in a free country. Whatever people may say about American police forces, and some of them are quite bad and some of them are quite good. When I lived in Maryland, it's a very good local police force in the town of Bethesda where I live. But what is absolutely the case is they're all local, and the police chief is profoundly responsible to local government and to local people, which in almost no case in Britain is now going on. You just don't get that. And one of the reasons why they've become so useless. So this whole idea of merger really ought to be resisted.
But a great big blob would mean more bureaucracy as well and more sort of red tape. But I think there's no substitute for local knowledge when it comes to things like crime. But I think there's an analogous situation also in the NHS with GPs. So most family GPs have now been replaced by sort of polyclinics, effectively, where you just have a roster of GPs, which means that you very rarely see the same GP twice. So every time you go and see a GP, they have to get to know you in 10 minutes, which is the length of your appointment. And as a result, the service has declined quite considerably, and people, their illnesses are missed because in the olden days, your GP knew you and therefore knew if you were just a bit peaky or whether there was something seriously wrong with you. And so it's an analogous situation. And whenever you sort of standardize all of these kind of services, they always get less good. So earlier, you and I were talking about trains, which are often a topic of conversation when I'm in the room with Peter. But you were saying that one of the reasons that they're starting to have these terrible crashes in Spain and on the continent is because they have privatised.
Well, I can't prove that that's the case, but it's certainly interesting.
It's a similar thing.
But Germany, for instance, used to have fantastically safe trains, and then they started to have accidents, and it was noticeable this happened about the same time as they went for privatisation. But when I first travelled, the Spanish high-speed trains, they were fantastic trains. And I first travelled, and they were run by Renfe, the Spanish state railways. Now, would you believe it, the French state railways, SNCF, are competing with Spanish state railways on the same tracks, running
how can they possibly know
trains.
What the state of the track is in Barcelona when they are, I don't know, their head office is probably
it's just what you're going to have is if you don't have a unified organisation running both the tracks and the trains, then, as I think we also experienced in the early years of privatisation in this country, when there was a terrible parade of awful crashes, Hatfield and the others, which just seem to go on all the time. I just think there must be a connection, and I would like to see some. But when I saw the film of the big Spanish railway crash that took place near Cordoba, and I noticed that one of the trains involved was painted in a livery which I had never seen, and this is a sign of what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I hate rail privatisation. I think it's stupid. I think there really ought to be. It's imposed on continental railways by European Union regulation, by the way. But I think people should really examine these events and ask themselves whether perhaps this form of organisation has made railways safe.
I think that people are generally very unhappy with the idea that a sort of amorphous body a long way away can make decisions about their day-to-day local life. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons why the country voted for Brexit, in a way, because there was this idea of this entity in Brussels that was making decisions about whether or not you could have a lock on the toilet door, or whether you, all these sort of very, very localised, very personal issues that are very important to people. I think people, going back to your thing about the police, it's, if you have a local police force and local policemen who understand the area, they know whether it's, if someone rings them up and says, I'm at this address, something's happening, whether or not they need to attend urgently or not, because they will know who the local miscreants are. They will have a good sense of, whether that person is dangerous or not, because they'll have access to the information.
It's also part of a philosophical revolution in the way we police the country. Instead, what we used to believe was that the purpose of the police was to be visible, to be a rallying point for the good against the bad, and to prevent things from happening. Now we have organisations which have targets for reaction times, who feel it is their job to react to police. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, the police cannot unburgle you, they cannot unmug you, they cannot unstab you, they cannot unmurder you. They are useless after a crime, except in the collecting of information. What you want police for is to stop yourself being mugged, stabbed, burgled and murdered in the first place. And they don't do that, and this will be another step away from doing that.
When I was a child,
People should oppose it.
When I was a child, I was always told, if you ever feel frightened or anything, or get lost or anything, find your nearest policeman.
Yes.
I mean, that
good luck with that now.
would take a very long time now. So it is part of a general decline in these things, and I think it's correct to resist it. And also the other thing is that if you're going to have one of these big amorphous police forces, then there's going to have to be one person who's in charge of it, and then it sort of becomes like the BBC, where you have a director general who doesn't actually have any control or know what's going on in the organisation whatsoever, and is endlessly being attacked and fired for stuff that really is...
The idea that big is beautiful,
no, it
seems to me to have been totally discredited by the past 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. OK, let us know what you think. Please, dear listener, alas@dailymail.co.uk, please. Or you can leave a comment on Spotify, or send us a voice note on WhatsApp 077 96 657 512. Start your message with the word alas. Right, questions, letters, communications. Peter, you have mentioned of a file once held by MI5 that you suspected was destroyed once New Labour came to power. You suspected many of New Labour's core personnel were on this list, and that you may even have been on this list as well. But given you could not find this list, what evidence do you have that such a list ever existed in the first place? Brackets, could a listener of this show view such evidences? Close brackets. Thanks, Luke.
Oh, the news of the destruction of the MI5 files was given sometime around about early 1998 in a parliamentary answer, as I recall, and reported in a number of newspapers. So there's no secret about the destruction, which followed calls from Peter Mandelson in particular for it to happen. It's not a matter of dispute. What I can't prove there was a file on me because I've never seen it, though I'd be amazed, given the attention which the security services appeared to be giving to our revolutionary group in the early 1970s. I'd be amazed if there wasn't.
If there wasn't, yeah.
But I can't prove. But there's no doubt at all there were very large numbers of files on what were in those days called subversives.
It's a shame, though, because if you could find it, you could have it framed and put it in your downstairs.
All kinds of things, but they're quite boring generally. Those that have been released, as they occasionally were before then. They don't amount to all that much, and they're often quite silly and being compiled by people who have
quite petty,
very little sense of humour. But the real point is just that they were the only record of the, in my view, very large numbers of new Labour figures who were in revolutionary organisations in the late 60s and early 70s. And now you can only speculate, unless there's by some accidental slip, it comes out.
Just while we're on the subject of spies, what's your view on this gigantic super Chinese embassy that's about to be opened up in the bang smack in the middle of London?
Well, embassy spy, they always have, and there they are. There is an argument, which if you want to watch what foreign diplomats are doing, when they all go fanning out. Certainly when the old Soviet embassy used to be a huge centre of espionage, and the Soviet trade mission up in Highgate. The numbers of people which the security service had to put on the street was huge, because what they would do if they were sending someone out for an important meeting with an agent or contact was all the diplomats in the embassy would be sent out, or as many as they could muster, onto the street round about the same time to overload the security service's watchers.
Right.
And so this is a constant struggle anyway. The thing about the big Chinese embassy is that a lot of other Chinese offices, which previously scattered all over London, will be closed, and so they'll have one place to watch. But there's no ideal way of doing it. We have an embassy in Peking. And
is it in a strategic part of Peking?
I think we want to move it. I think it's very inconvenient. It's quite old, and we want to renew it, and we won't get that unless we grant the Chinese this. It's always tit for tat. Frankly, I'm not sure what it is the Chinese want to know about this country that isn't pretty much obvious anyway. Decrepit and I went to the pub yesterday. I found out that the chain to which it belongs is owned by Chinese.
Yes, quite.
If they own the pubs, they know everything. Anyway.
That's it.
It's all gone.
It's all over. It's all over.
We have no lines of defence left. I don't know. I think it's an awful lot of fuss, which I don't myself feel particularly worried by, because we're not a strategically important country.
No.
We don't really have much. I think the idea that these cables running in a tunnel by the embassy are terribly vulnerable. Well, maybe they are, but if the Chinese are as good at electronics as they appear to be, I don't think they need to worry about having
But also now that everyone's talked about them, they're not really going to cut the cable.
It's just one of those causes that people get.
But it's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about the sort of shifting tectonic plates of kind of global politics. And, with America as unstable as it currently is, I don't know. Are we even friends with America anymore? I don't know. Are we?
We've discussed that, haven't we? The thing about China is this. I mean, the Chinese embassy is very active in numbers of extremely unpleasant ways. And so if you're a Chinese student,
or dissident over here.
No, if you're a ordinary Chinese student, you'll come under pressure from the Chinese embassy to as it were, cooperate with them. And also you remember the visits of two Chinese presidents to this country over the past. And the way in which our police, become subservient to them, ignore the horrible, officially sponsored demonstrations of Chinese people, which are there so that the Chinese TV can show their leader being welcomed, and also savagely to suppress the demonstrations of people like the Free Tibet movement, swiped off the street. China already has a lot of influence in this country. It also has a lot of influence in our universities.
Well, I mean, I think
if you're worried about China, then those things seem to me to be much more concerning than the size of their embassy building.
I think the Chinese put a lot of sway by status and appearing to have status. I remember when
it's not as if we do that.
No, well, but I remember when Michael and the then Prime Minister David Cameron went to China. Do you remember they did that visit to China, and they all went to China?
I mainly remember the President Xi drinking beer in a pub near Chequers.
And do you remember there was that photograph of them all drinking champagne, but it was in fact water. But the thing that apparently that's most surprised the Chinese was that they all went economy.
Yes.
And they didn't all fly in their own private Learjet because it is important to be seen to have status.
If you're in the Chinese elite, you're in a real elite.
And I think having a embassy in that location, that has that history, because it used to be the Royal Mint, I think will be considered quite a victory.
Well, I think we have to get used to the fact that we're not as important as we used to be. We don't even have a Royal Mint in the City of London anymore, for instance, which is a shame for me. We are not a powerful or particularly wealthy or particularly important country, and this is what happens. The time was when we lorded it over the Chinese. Remember when we marched into Peking in, what was it, the 1840s?
Yes, that was a while ago, to be fair.
Yes, but I mean, we burned the Summer Palace. They haven't forgotten.
Dear Sarah Vine and Peter Hitchens, I listened with interest to your discussion on language and annoying train announcements. While station stop doesn't bother me for the same reasons Peter mentioned, a complete stop does. Please wait until the train has come to a complete stop, it goes. What is a complete stop? Or to put it another way, what would an incomplete stop be? Because if it was moving, it wouldn't be stopped. It's a bit like being absolutely convinced. Arg. Regards.
Well, I can't. I mean, I have been involved in several incomplete stops myself. The train appears to have slowed down to the point of, and then suddenly it lurches. Trains these days accelerate and brake much more violently than they used to. I've been sent flying more than once.
Really?
Oh yeah, the brakes are incredibly fierce on modern trains, and the acceleration can be quite fast. And if they go over the points too fast, you can be flung about as well. So there is a sort of moment between nearly stopping and stopping where they can quite
so
often.
they sort of slow down and then they jerk a bit.
Some railway expert may be able to explain to me. I believe also that the tracks in major stations are magnetised, so that when the trains do stop, they're held in position.
Well, who's going to lift them off the tracks?
Well, it's just if once the well, I don't suppose God is inclined to do that, but
he might be bored.
I think it's just a way apparently of keeping them
stable,
properly motionless and not rolling about with the gradient. I heard this from station staff at a station I won't name. I never realised it before, but then until quite recently, I didn't know what a track circuit was either.
What is a track circuit?
Well, it's an electronic circuit which runs through the tracks, through which the central control box, or which is no longer a signal box, can work out where trains are.
Ah, well, quite important.
Yes.
Hello. My question is for both of you. This is from Brian. Do you believe in neutrality in war like Switzerland in World War II, or do you think it's just cowardice, especially if you know you would lose anyway in the case of Switzerland that was surrounded by Axis powers and chose to indirectly please the Nazis, just like Spain and Portugal? A very good question, actually.
Well, it isn't really. I mean, neutrality is sensible when you're not part of the quarrel. What did Switzerland have to gain or lose in either a First or Second World War? It's an independent country, and they defended themselves very fiercely, and the Germans knew very well if they invaded Switzerland, they would lose huge numbers of people trying to attack.
And also lose all their
Switzerland
money.
has a thing called
Switzerland had all the bank accounts.
All Swiss men above a certain age are trained very thoroughly in the military arts, and there is a complicated defence plan which is kept secret. The place is full of defensive. They have plenty of weapons, and they also have plenty of fortifications. And there's a thing called the National Redoubt, where they basically pull back into the mountainous heart of the country, and you try attacking that. I don't blame them for being neutral. What was their part in the quarrel? We had to, I think, in 1939 go, or around about then. My own view is 39 was the wrong date, but to get involved in that war, because it was intolerable for anybody to have a continent dominated by Nazi Germany. But that was partly the fault of our having so stupidly got into the First World War, where we should have stayed neutral. Neutrality is what you do when you are not part of the quarrel. The other thing that Britain used to do, which was a sort of neutrality, was that we used to pay other people to fight for us. We maintained a very small army, and we paid allies to fight for us, particularly against Napoleon Bonaparte. Almost all of our battles against him were fought by other people, or in alliances with the Prussians and the Belgians, or whoever came to hand. And I don't think we
couldn't do that now.
Well, we can't afford it, but John le Carre is one of his best books, Small Town in Germany, but British Embassy in Berlin. One of the diplomats says at one point, "I'd rather be defeated than neutral," which is a very grand thing to say. But I think defeat is such a horrible thing that I would much rather be neutral than defeated. And I think that neutrality is often a very sensible option in a quarrel that isn't yours. What was our quarrel in a Russo-German war in 1914? Please tell me, because I don't know.
I don't know. I honestly couldn't.
Nobody can tell me.
I don't know. I'm not as gung ho about these things as a lot of people. I think that if you can stay out of a war, you should stay out of a war, generally speaking.
Well, since the day I first saw a human head that had a bullet go through it, I just really don't have very much patience with the jingos and warmongers.
I mean, obviously, if the enemy is at the gates, one has to defend oneself, but otherwise. Alas, you mentioned Tony Benn in the last episode. What do you think of him, especially Peter? It appears much of your criticism of socialism doesn't apply to that which he preached, Ben being a Christian. Will Clark via Spotify.
Well, I just agree with him, but I thought that a lot of his particularly his economic policies were probably wrong, and I think I didn't like his republicanism, and I think he was say, profoundly mistaken in a lot of areas, but that doesn't. I don't have this kind of view of politics where you have to dislike or loathe or stop listening to people you disagree with. On the contrary, if you disagree with someone, that's the point at which you have to start listening to them, and then either you can explain to yourself and them why you disagree with them, or you have to take into account they have something to say. But what I liked about him, and in fact I met him shortly before he died, in his house in Holland Park to discuss the growing threat, which both of us saw, to the liberty of the subjects in this country. And he was very, very concerned about it. He was an Englishman, and he loved English liberty, and he was prepared to do an awful lot of things to defend it. And I admire that, whatever else you said about anything. Also, I loved his sense of humour, and I thought he was a very enjoyable and engaging public speaker, which is more than you can say for most of them now.
But also, I think there's something to be said. Life is a journey. You don't have to have the same views and ideas throughout the entire thing.
Absolutely not. No.
You can change your views. You can learn. You can make mistakes and learn from those, and revise your opinion. And that is absolutely right. Larry via Spotify says, in Texas, one way to say performative is all hat and no cattle.
I've heard this expression.
I think in England we say all mouth and no trousers, don't we?
We do. Though but it's not quite the same.
No.
That's just being noisy without doing anything. Performative is much more flooding several cities in the United States with armed pseudo police who appear to be chasing immigrants around while migration goes up. That's performative.
Brooklyn Beckham.
That's doing something which looks as if it's effective when it's not. Taking a position which looks as if it might be effective.
Exactly. To go back to our earlier topic that you enjoyed so much, Brooklyn Beckham has accused his parents of performative parenting.
Golly, has he?
Yes, in his diatribe that he did.
Oh my goodness.
He used the word performative.
It wouldn't seem to me to be very performative parenting to dance on your offspring. But I may have got the wrong end of the high-heeled shoe again.
On that note, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out this week's reading watch list and share the books, TV and films you think we might want to read or indeed watch for that or anything else. You can email alas@dailymail.co.uk. You can leave a comment on Spotify, or you can send us a voice note on WhatsApp 07796 657 512, and please start your message with the word alas. Thank you for listening.
Now, I'm as guilty as anyone when it comes to ignoring things. Road grey hairs, red flags in relationships, or that service reminder on your car dash. Luckily, that one's easy. Visit Cinch for faff-free servicing at over 100 locations. Any car, whether you bought it from Cinch or not. With MOTs $39.95 and servicing from only $129.95. To book your service or buy your next car, visit cinch.co.uk. See cinch.co.uk/servicing for details, terms and exclusions apply.